You know, when you hear the words Dark Ages, what pops into your head? Probably a pretty gloomy picture, right? A 1,000-year slump for civilization, a time of superstition and decay. But what if that whole image is wrong? In this explainer, we're going to tear that idea apart.
Seriously, what if the story we've all been told about this period isn't the whole truth? What if it's more like a carefully constructed myth? Let's dig in and see if this was really an era of total decline, or if there's something else going on that we've missed.
The story we all know is pretty simple. After Rome fell, the lights went out in Europe. Knowledge was lost, superstition took over, plagues were everywhere, and constant war was just a part of life. It's the classic story of a golden age falling into darkness.
And this negative picture, man, it's powerful. It's been hammered into our culture for centuries, showing up in textbooks and movies, framing this huge chunk of history, from the 5th to the 15th century, as basically a write-off. But, as we're about to see, history is almost never that black and white.
So, where did this whole idea even come from? Let's start with the name itself, because here's the kicker. Nobody who actually lived during this time called it the Dark Ages. Not a single person. That label was invented way, way later.
The phrase actually comes from a 14th century Italian scholar named Petrarch, but, and this is a huge but, he wasn't trying to label 1,000 years of history as worthless. He was a poet, and he was just expressing his personal sadness, this lament for what he saw as the fading brilliance of ancient Greece and Rome, which he totally revered.
But what started as a poet's lament got twisted centuries later. During the Enlightenment, thinkers needed a villain, a dark past to make their own Age of Reason look even brighter. So they took Petrarch's phrase and basically weaponized it, painting the entire medieval period as this terrible age of ignorance just to make themselves look better.
Okay, but hold on. If this was an age of total darkness and ignorance, how did any knowledge survive at all? The truth is, it wasn't lost. It was being protected. And the protectors were hiding in some of the most unlikely places you can imagine. Turns out, medieval monks, who we often picture as just praying all day, were the quiet heroes of this story. Tucked away behind monastery walls, they were working tirelessly, copying and translating and protecting enormous amounts of classical wisdom. And we're not just talking about religious texts. They were studying Plato, Euclid, advanced medicine, and even digging into ideas that directly challenge the church's teachings. And this is where we get the great irony of the era. The very same institution that saved all this ancient knowledge also kept it under lock and key. The church knew that knowledge is power, so by controlling which books were shared and which ideas were kept hidden, it made sure it stayed the ultimate authority on, well, everything.
But the story gets even bigger and frankly more interesting when we zoom out from Western Europe. Because the idea of a global dark age just completely falls apart when you look at what was happening in other parts of the world. While one region faced huge challenges, other civilizations were absolutely thriving.
This timeline really says it all. It's like a tale of two completely different worlds living side by side. While Western Europe is dealing with the collapse of Rome and later Viking raids, look what's happening elsewhere. The Byzantine Empire is a hub of culture, and the Islamic world is kicking off a golden age of science and math. It was anything but dark everywhere.
The Byzantine Empire, which was really the Eastern Roman Empire, is a perfect example. I mean, it lasted for over 1,000 years, acting as this critical bridge to the ancient world. Its capital, Constantinople, was one of the greatest cities on earth, a center for art and trade, and its scholars saved and built upon the very knowledge that would eventually kickstart the European Renaissance.
And then you have the Islamic Golden Age. I mean, wow. In cities like Baghdad and Cordoba, scholars didn't just save old texts, they launched knowledge into the future. They gave us algebra, wrote medical encyclopedias that were the standard for centuries, and made incredible leaps in astronomy and optics. These weren't just small tweaks, these were world-changing breakthroughs.
So, if the evidence is this clear, if there was so much innovation and preservation happening, why does the myth of the Dark Ages still stick around? The answer really comes down to one simple but very powerful question. Who gets to write the story?
A myth this big doesn't survive by accident. First off, history is usually written by the winners. Renaissance and Enlightenment thinkers in Europe built a story that made them the heroes by trashing the past. Then you've got political rivalries. It wasn't exactly convenient to give credit to other cultures like the Byzantines or the Islamic world. And finally, let's be honest, it's just an easier story to tell. A simple darkness into light narrative is a lot cleaner than the messy, complicated truth.
And that really brings us to the final point. Tearing down the Dark Ages myth isn't just about correcting the history books. It's a lesson for right now.
It forces us to ask, what comfortable stories, what accepted truths of our own time will future generations look back on as their Dark Age myth? What's being conveniently left out of the story we're being told today?